We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Warning. The following program contains explicit language and mature content. It is not meant for the easily offended. So if you are an emotional pussy, please refrain from listening. Thank you and enjoy.
I love it. Back again, the Words on Fire podcast. Your boy Cujo riding solo today. Everybody else had other life events happening. I guess I'll say it that way. Special guest today. We're gonna have my boy Rob, formerly from a Higher Frequency podcast, formerly from the Float Spa, just a wanderer of the world. I love it. We're gonna pay some bills first. Remember, follow us on the Instagram at the Words on Fire podcast, on our website, thewordsonfire.com. Those of you that are watching on YouTube, appreciate it. Don't forget, down here somewhere, there's a subscribe, a like, thumbs up, bell notification, somewhere down there. Hit all that. Tell your friends, tell your mama, tell your mama's uncle. Tell everybody you can. Help us spread the word, because there's a lot of great knowledge I feel is going to be pressed on you guys today. And our ultimate special guest goes by the name of Zonia, right? I get that right? Because I'm horrible with names. I mess up everything.
That's right.
I even mess up my co-host's name sometimes.
Wait, what's this guy's name?
Yeah, that's it. I gave him the fucking name. Yeah, you remember the first time you came on, when Rob came on, we had little name tags, like paper name tags. We wrote them out so we could remember who we were, and we put it in front of us so that way when they're talking, it's like, all right, this is me. So we've graduated a little bit. Zonia, thank you for coming on. Thank you for taking part in this debacle that we called our podcast. It's going to be some interesting stuff. You want to tell the people a little bit about your background that you're telling me right now? That way we could see, people can understand where we're going from or where we're going to and what's going to happen pretty soon.
Where we're headed? Well, that lays to be seen. But yeah, my background, I was born here in El Paso, Texas. Multiple generations here. Texas and the border basically grew around my family.
Right.
So it's nice to be here, but I've traveled around a bit, and I work at a retreat center in Mexico.
Okay.
That's been on hold since the whole pandemic, but has just opened up. So I'm on my way back over there to do healing work.
Okay. So healing work, what do you mean by healing work? What exactly is healing work consist of? What is that?
Healing work is basically helping people to see themselves as whole, and hopefully leading them towards a life that is pain-free and wherein they can transcend their suffering and find something that brings them joy on a daily basis.
Okay, so that's more on the spiritual, more on the actual soul style as opposed to the physical?
It can be. I've been taught and trained to work from the spinal column to the joints, the ligaments, the muscles, the energetic body, also working with the psyche and the brain and the psychology as well.
Okay, yeah, because I know you had said you have a background in psychology, which is, that alone, I'm surprised you're not crazy, because I think that...
Well,
you know, yeah. I guess I'll take that back. I've already met you, so
you just
I'll
met me,
see if water holds later on.
I remember one time talking to my father and asking him, "Am I crazy?" And he looked at me and he was very quiet. He just kind of got, yes, but in the best way possible.
Well, okay, so what is the best way possible to be crazy?
I think the best way possible to be crazy is to follow the way that's there for you, even when it goes contrary to what the rest of the people around you are doing.
Dope.
And that can make you sometimes feel like you are crazy. It can make you question yourself. It can make other people have a whole lot of opinions about you.
Right.
And actually, tell you and reflect to you that you're crazy.
Damn, so...
That's when you know you're on the right track.
Yeah, when people think you local, you're onto something.
You're onto something.
So, like when people refer to, I know Rob and I have talked about, we've been big like on conspiracies and big on not so much trying to make things up, but just questioning
the rabbit hole.
Right, the rabbit hole. Right, questioning why this, why that. Isn't it easier? And this is what I've said, and I believe this wholeheartedly, that even if you're right, it's easier to put that name on somebody that, oh, he's crazy because he's a conspiracy theorist, because it's easier to accept that somebody's crazy than to accept that you're wrong.
Well, I think it falls into how comfortable people are with uncertainty. Mm-hmm. You know, and I feel that people who cling to truth are very, very uncomfortable with uncertainty.
Right.
You know, they need that rightness, but the truth is usually somewhere between all of us, and if we take a drop of everything that we know, somewhere in the middle over there is what's true. Mm-hmm. You know, and so for me, I find that, just finding that uncertainty is such an important part of our being healthy as human beings. Mm-hmm. And I was even talking to, you know, some people recently where I was like, I would just feel a lot better if 90% of the population right now felt uncertain. Mm-hmm. You know, that they had something that they were kind of gravitating towards, and maybe they had come to some sort of like soul agreement, or maybe they had gone through some logical process and come to a conclusion, but they were still open to see what time will tell us, because we're living in such an unknown period of time, and no one can really know what the effects of anything are going to be until we look back.
So then so it seems like everything you look at more logical than just hopefulness, which I think a lot of us are more just, well, you know, hopefully we think this way, it's going to work out, as opposed to looking at facts and logically coming to a conclusion. So are you religious in any faction?
I'm extremely spiritual.
Okay, but spiritual and religious are two different things, though, aren't they?
They are very different.
So are you religious?
Am I religious about the way that I do certain things? I say I do have some ritual, but no, I'm not ascribed to any particular religion.
You see, I love how you can smartly articulate your way around it without actually hitting it. Without saying, just say yes or no. Yes or no.
Well, I'll tell you, I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, baptized a Catholic. I was really into Buddhism, and then drifted into shamanism at one point, and then came more into Zen, and then just kind of left off all the isms.
Wow. So what is there a common theme that you notice from all the different isms that you followed that is more of a not like a mind hold for people, as opposed to an actual belief that there actually is something there?
I'm going to tell you a story.
Uh-oh. Hold on. I'm going to fix your mic for you a bit, because I want to hear this.
Get it right.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, I have a feeling you're going to drop a lot of knowledge on us.
Really close there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the story that actually came to my mind, popped right in there, was the story of Carl Jung. And he was raised by pastors and people who were very God-fearing and had all of the laws and regulations and how things are supposed to be set out before them. And they informed him of those, so that by the time he was 6 or 7, he was well-versed in it.
Right.
But he was having these really vivid dreams.
Okay.
And if you know anything about Eastern philosophies, Yogananda was a self-realized human being, which means that he came into this life remembering himself from other lives. Mm-hmm. That society is set up to look for that. And he became Yogananda, this yogic master, who has this lineage that people say sometimes goes back to the Himalayas and might even be Jesus on his lost years. But that's another story. Oh. So you wake up in the Western culture with all of these ideas of what is correct and what is right, and you're Carl Jung instead of Yogananda, but you're self-realized. You know you have this direct connection, right? But you're being told you're not supposed to trust your heart. Your heart is treacherous. You're not supposed to go against these guidelines. But he starts having these really lucid dreams, and in these dreams, God is coming to him, and God is trying to guide him and lead him along a path for him, and he's like waking up in night terrors and sweats, and he's like, oh my God, he's having an existential crisis. He's 6 years old.
Damn.
You know?
That's a lot to take in.
It's a lot to take in, and he's trying to figure out, well, what's going on. And in the middle, he's kind of watching his family, his uncles, all these pastors, and he starts going, I think they're making this up. I think they're making it up. I don't actually think that they have the same relationship with the real God that I am having coming in contact with me.
Right.
I'm gonna I'm going to violate what I've been told because God himself is telling me to sin against me in order to go down this path. And I'm just going to go. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to go into my dream state. I'm going to approach the throne of God, which I've been told is a mortal sin because I'm not supposed to have that direct connection to God.
Right.
And he goes into this dream state. He's 6, 7 years old. He's like going up to the throne of God. He's drenched in sweat. He's completely terrified of what's about to happen to him, and he approaches the throne of God, and God takes a shit on the church.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah. Oh shit!
Yeah.
Oh shit! You know, so he comes out of this dream state at 6 or 7 years old and realized that there's 2 states of being. He just transcended something, and he ends up with this relationship with this God force, this informing. Synchronistic approach to the psyche, to psychology, to dream state, to mythology, to symbols, to the unknown communicating with us, to that not being evil, but to that actually being part of us finding the truth that we're meant to. And this all ties back into like original Platonic ideas where they actually used to call the muse or that source of inspiration, which we call inspiration to be our breath or to be this, you know, force that is moving us, that is God's breath moving into us. They used to call that the daemon.
Okay.
The daemon was assigned to each person. Now, if you take that word and you think about religion and you think about how we've been taught to feel about that word, we fear it. But that was assigned to us to make sure that we would violate anything in society, anything that we are self-imposed, so that we would violate it, so that we could transcend, so that we could continue to evolve, so that we could find the path that was actually set out for us.
Damn. All that at 6 years old?
6 years
Oh,
old.
that's damn. I was thinking like Transformers and all
Right,
kinds of.
puppies?
This motherfucker's seeing God shit on church.
Exactly.
He's-
There's a lot of and nowadays like a lot of prodigies too. Like I don't know if you've ever seen these. I think it's a 6-year-old kid playing the piano. Oh, so ever so beautifully.
Right.
Like, but I don't know if those would be considered prodigies or what. But
I think it's a spiritual prodigy right there, right?
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, to be able to have that skill, or in this context, you know, to have that connection, that ability, it's something that's magical.
To follow the pulse,
Yeah.
right? That calls you. We were talking about the art, the creativity, the passion.
Yeah, I was mentioning there's this journalist by the name of Abby Martin, and she's on RT. I think it's like Russia Today.
Okay.
But she I found out she was an artist, right? And then I was really shocked to see some of her art because it's very politically driven and with the dark side of the corruption and things of that nature. And she there's this really awesome video that was put together on different art, but Abby Martin made a really beautiful statement that says that essentially all human beings are artists, and that we as artists have a responsibility and an obligation to speak and to communicate our art in a medium that speaks most to us. Right? So all of us as individuals have this potentiality to create art in different forms, right? For example, I mean, us sitting here, we could see Sonia's abilities. Her art is to communicate and to bring people together and serve as a healer. You is creating this podcast, and you know, me serving as a nurse or a rancher, whatever. So we're all artists in that in a different or in different contexts and different ways. But essentially, the responsibility of the human being having the human experience is to create art. And because it's through art that I think all people, it's a universal language. You know, it's like love. You don't have to have an appreciation for a canvas or appreciation for music or anything to appreciate it and to like it, right? Alan Watts talks about how life itself it's like a dance. And you don't dance to get to the end of the dance, right? Or think of it like music. Your favorite song, anything. You don't push play and then fast forward to
The ending.
Right.
Right.
Just to hear the ending. You
Right.
listen to the whole song, right?
Yeah.
And then there's ups and downs and crescendos and everything, and that's exactly how life is. Like life is a dance, and you have to dance with it. You have to go up and downs. And
Right.
anyways, going on a tangent here, but yeah.
No, but I mean,
I thought right on topic.
yeah, but it makes sense because I know people were. So I had seen. I don't know. If I'm sure you've seen this. About Elon Musk has just created a school for his kids, and his way of schooling is different, and he's getting a lot of pushback because he was saying that his way, that the way of schooling that we have right now is completely wrong. Because they're trying to, especially like for myself, I have my 11-year-old and my 8-year-old, and they're always, instead of trying to teach them something to either make them a better person or to attack whatever, or actually not to attack, but to glorify whatever special ability that they have, whether it be writing, poetry, singing, dancing, even if it's, an athlete. So instead of doing that, they're more of teaching a test just to get you by. And there's nothing anymore like back when we were in school. They would have like home ec where they can teach you how to fend for yourself, so you don't have to depend on somebody else, or like wood shops, so you can build shit for people that enjoy doing that. And instead of teaching you things that are actually good for you, like balancing checkbook, knowing how to do taxes at the end of like things to instill to make you a better person, what Elon Musk is doing is the classes or the school that he developed. It's only like I think 14 people that he has right now, but instead of going off of grades, they're going off to like, I guess he tests you out at first, and then if they, for example, like Sonia, you're more on the psychologist route, so you're gonna be just specialized already as a kid, focusing on that because math is going to do what for you at that point? You know what I mean?
And that was how original indigenous cultures actually functioned. The Hawaiians had a whole kahuna system, and a lot of, the tribes had that, and it was natural. Kids wanted to go work on wood. They were over at the canoe, and they were working on the canoe. I learned a lot of the things I did because when my grandma started laying hands or making some salves, my eyes were right there with her. I learned a lot of art just from watching. And that is something that came out of the schools. My first occupation was actually as a high school teacher.
Really? What were you teaching at that point?
I was teaching English, American literature, and my last 4 years were at-risk youth.
Okay.
And what I found in my at-risk class was that it was coinciding with them taking all the humanities out, right? So a lot of the arts, music, all of that was leaving the school as they were bringing in all these standardized tests that was becoming very science math based.
Right.
Well, the at-risk class was filled with spiritualists, musicians, dancers, theater people. So my classroom was so fun. But I definitely have seen that in order for those people to thrive, they've actually had to leave the school system and then become entrepreneurial. Right.
Yeah, you see, that's crazy because, I mean, like you said, a lot of people, for example, like when you're in the math setting, they teach you pi, they teach you all this, which is something you'll never use again, unless you are a scientist and you're doing equations to do your volumes and all that. But the average person on the daily, I've never sat in traffic and thought that whole thought process of if I'm going 75 miles per hour and the fucking truck is going at 30, how long? You know what I mean? Well, that never fucking happens.
The truth is that, I mean, especially now, right? There's the overwhelming amount of information that we have at our disposal because of the internet and through other resources that have been created now for free.
Right.
I think at this point it's no longer controversial to say that schools and all educational systems, public and private, are essentially there with the agenda and the intention to create work employees. Right. People that know how to follow rules, that know how to conform to policies and everything that essentially passed down in corporate America.
Right.
And schools are not about helping and teaching individuals how to think for themselves, how to think for the community, how to improve themselves, how to improve the community. They're there for corporate greed, essentially. We'll teach you how to behave. We'll teach you how to sit down. Think of this. Why is it that you go to school for 8 hours and yet work shifts are usually 8 hours.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So you learn to sit somewhere and listen to somebody for 8 hours, right? Like, I mean, and I hate to use a comparison of dogs and humans, but I'm currently right now training a Belgian Malinois, and these are very high drive dogs. And one thing that isn't very important that I've learned from doing my due diligence as a dog owner is learning what it means to train a dog, right?
Right.
And a lot of it is making sure that there's discipline, making sure that there's routine, and that there's
Right.
consistency. And if you have these key ingredients, then that dog, being a high drive animal, in a way you suppress, and it's not suppressing its nature, but you're teaching him how to use that high drive, all that energy, and corral it into what you want him to do.
Right. Into that schedule.
And that's what humans are. Like, look at the potential that we as human beings have, you know.
Right.
Everybody, like, yes, of course there's exceptions. Elon Musk, Albert Einstein, Carl
Right.
Jung,
Waldorf, Montessori.
there you go. So those are exceptional human beings, and that's not the average. But we all, as human beings, we all possess the capability of tapping into another dimension, into spirituality, into energies, into healing, into all these other realms that are available to all of us. And we're not, and it's not necessarily that because we're not taught in how to get to there, but even basics as like learning how to change your oil, doing things that are instrumental to make daily life as a human being efficient and effective. The educational system is not designed to teach people that. And again, at this point, I'm not a parent, but one of the reasons why I have decided to wait to become a parent, 33 years old, and I don't know if I will decide to procreate, but it's because that's one huge reason. So to think that I essentially will choose to participate into a monetary system, because if I don't, then, you know, I have to live a different lifestyle, right? We all have to work to put a roof over our head, to put food on the table. So I will choose to participate in the monetary system. Therefore, if I choose to have a kid, that means that somebody else will be raising my kid. One of them being the educational system, these institutions that are, again, there not for the benefit of human beings as in general, right? Like, another thing that they don't teach is how to understand or process emotions, how to communicate effectively. You know, one thing that we all have is, you know, relationships with other people, whether it's intimate, whether it's familial, whether it's in the work environment. Nobody ever teaches us how to talk to people, how to process emotions, how to, you know, do these things. These are things that you learn as you go in life. And hopefully you're lucky enough where you get to, your lessons are not so costly. Right. Somebody that doesn't know how to manage anger, right? That they don't end up shooting somebody or stabbing somebody, and now they're going to be in a penitentiary, and that's their lesson, compared to somebody who probably did the same thing and got off with was fortunate enough to learn in a different way. So again, there's part of the human experience is knowing how to, or at least having the basics and the fundamentals to be able to live a decent and quality life of human life. And
that's what education used to do.
And that's,
I think that when you take the standardized tests out of the classroom becomes kind of like a theater stage, you know, and that theater stage becomes an opportunity for people to watch other people relate, because, the varied backgrounds have shifted. That's changed to familial backgrounds, you know, whether people have like healthy parental, you know, units in order to understand, you know, the difference between masculine and feminine. And of course, all of that interweaves inside of everybody. That was something Carl Jung talked a lot about. We all have an inner child. We all have a little old person. We all have a jokester. We all have a shadow person in there. Everyone has that. And I was even talking to my mom this morning. We all talk to ourselves. She's we do, right? Yes, we do. You know, anyone who tells you they aren't having full-on conversations inside of their mind are really lying to you. But it's all there. And then what happens inside of a container, and that could be a ceremonial container, that could be a teepee, that could be a sweat lodge, that could be a yoga class, that could be a classroom, that could be right here. You know, we're we're all demonstrating what human interactions and relationships are really all about. And that's something that you just don't have time for anymore.
Yeah.
But that used to be my favorite part of the classroom. And, the kids used to call me mom. I was really young. I started teaching when I was 20. I'm 46 now. So I've had that, opportunity to work in classrooms and with teenagers and preteens for about 12 years.
Okay.
And so they would call me that. And I realized that they needed to hear how I talked, not to them necessarily, but to other people. They needed to watch those other people interact with me. They needed to have my presence there so that they could elevate conversation and so that they could elevate the way that they were treating one another.
Okay.
And so that is part of our human experience. And I do think that it's possible for us to still have those experiences despite the standardized testing, but that has to happen behind every door. It has to happen with every person. We were talking about the effects of social media on conversation.
Yep.
And I was talking about, the extremity of conversation and where that goes. We were talking about the uncertainty and how, when people become too certain, they become too dogmatic, and then we're not able to have conversations. But it used to be that we used to all hang out in groups of people who were not exactly like us.
Right. That's the best way to learn is by in the interaction that you have with somebody, whether different culture, different, even within the same culture, but you have different backgrounds. Because you're it's like the trials and tribulations, right? That's what makes it at the end of the day. You could be looked upon as being a completely shit person, but as long as you have that moral compass that keeps you around the same path, even though you don't project to be out this great, nice dude, you seem to be an asshole. People that don't understand you, but the people around you that actually know you understand the truth behind it. You know what I mean? And I'm glad you talked. So let's hit on a lot of things that you talked about. When you're speaking, as far as on the psychological realm, a lot lately has been happening with the new pronouns, right? Everybody's really pushing, and it seems like what we were talking earlier about, when you have corporate America, it seems like there's always something like an agenda being pushed upon people, right? Prior to mid 70s, you had a few people that would come out that would either cross dress, like you had that one dude on MASH, but it was kind of like, at first it was not making fun of it, but little by little it's been growing and growing and growing, and it seems that all of a sudden now people who haven't completely formed their mind yet are leaning more towards that way, because that's the new hot trend.
It's a fad.
Yeah, and it seems like it is it scary having that within social media being so big now that everybody wants to be, I don't want to say they want to be the butt of jokes, but they feel like they're being attacked even though they're not. They just want to be part of the whole, oh, well, you made fun of them, now I feel attacked. Well, it's you know what I mean? Everybody wants to be included now.
I was listening to a comedian the other day, and he was saying, it seems to me now that people are in a race to be offended, not for themselves, but for other people, even if the other person is okay with it.
Right.
And, yeah, this whole conversation, I have it with a lot of my friends. I'm from California right now, so I have a lot of friends that are, becoming different gender, or also relating really to plural, and sometimes they get upset with me, but I'm not asking from a negative place. I'm actually asking from the healing place, where I'm asking, do we just need a different pronoun that has no male or female in there, because they doesn't make sense to me, but then I'll talk to them about it, and I'm like, well, is that because you're acknowledging your past self prior to your transformation, and you are therefore you both reside within this physical body? Do you call yourself they because you feel plural? Do you have both this masculine and this feminine that play back and forth? Because I have a friend down in Mexico whose child was from infancy very drawn to the masculine, into the masculine underwear, the masculine haircuts, but is female.
Okay.
So they would go back and forth with female name and masculine name, but I've known that child since they were an infant. And so when I would go away, come back, this was all happening with no external influence, no social media happening. And I would come back, and so it was like, no, you should call this now the boy name. So I would call her by the boy name, but she would get upset with me. She actually wanted me to remember the femininity inside of her. And so it was this process where I was like, okay, that's they. It's both of them. Right? Or I have a friend who, grew up and totally embraces and still loves the feminine part of themselves from youth, but has become masculine now. They're they, because all of their life is encompassed. That makes sense to me. But I do find oftentimes that when I start asking these questions, people don't have the answers to it, and they think that I'm asking out of ignorance, which I am, because it wasn't part of our world growing up, and so I'm just trying to understand. And I've also, come in contact with some studies on what's happening with autistic people, high-leveling autistic people who neither really relate to masculine or feminine. They're somewhat asexual. And so while they're talking about feeling disengaged from their physical body, they'll go in to talk to psychologists who are now pushing changing gender, thinking that's the answer. For some people it is. I had a student who was struggling all through high school. After high school, came out to me, said, I'm gay. I said, great. Came out to me again, needed to tell me I have a very older partner. Okay, great. Just needed to talk to somebody who unconditionally would accept and love them. Okay, my partner and I, we're going to have a child together. Awesome, great. Okay, Miss Lou, I need to talk to you. I'm going to become a boy. Okay. Great. Is that why are you doing that? Is that because it makes you feel safer? Because that person had a lot of trauma in high school with the opposite sex. So I thought, well, maybe they feel safer. No, I now look the way that I've always felt. And then I was like, oh, you kept putting yourself in those unsafe situations because you thought you were masculine, but then under, maybe drugs or alcohol, those masculine energies would now turn on your feminine body. Oh, so now you feel more like yourself, and that person is a success story. Very, very happy, beautiful, shining example of what that change is supposed to look like. But then, some of these autistic kids will go through the change. Well, they just naturally, autistic people don't feel right in their physical body. So that wasn't the solution. And so going back to what you were saying, is it a trend? Is it a fad? I think so for some, but not for all. There are success stories, but I think there need to be more questions, and the people who are being asked the questions, if they could come out of that hypersensitivity to realize that these questions are being asked to help them sort out uncertainty and unfamiliar territory, and especially if it's around the time of hormones, we all feel weird. There's just some days where I do tend more towards my masculine side. I really walked around with my father a lot. I learned a lot from my uncles. That's why in my 30s, when I was running sweat lodges, I understood how to do the fire. I understood how to do the wood. I understood all of that from a masculine perspective. But now as I'm older and softening, I'm like, oh, good, I'm so much like my mom. And they are very binary. I grew up in a household where it was like they're still married. They've known each other since they're 15. My mom is very much the female. My father is very much the male, So, I do have that experience, but I'm also really open to understanding what all of the different environments and influences and biology are for each individual.
Yeah, because I don't know. We talked about this last time you were on, but there was a special that Vice, right? So Vice had run a special a few years back where they were talking about where parents, where they wanted a little girl, but when they had a child born, it was a boy. So right off the bat, they started treating them as a female with the hope of making them into a transgender later on. And since they were young, it was all mija this or daughter this, girl that, feminine clothing, feminine toys, always refer to him as a her. And at the point when she was like 5, she had made a statement like, oh, you know what? I don't know why people think I'm a boy. I'm a girl. So the mom was like, you know what? We're having your sex transformation today. It was like, wait a minute. How can you? And this is a process that this is the not the misconception, but this is where I get upset. Is that you've been not blending, but you've been shaping this person to be something that they're not. And if you go through with this and give them through all this ridicule, and at the end of the day, when they finally, when their cortex is actually developed at what, 25, when they finally are able to have their own thoughts and think for themselves, and they're like, wait a minute, this whole fucking time in my life, I've been lied to and I've lived the wrong thing. The effects that could have on that person, whether, like we were talking about earlier, how if they go through all this shit, now their outlet is going to be violence, or their outlet might be even as saddening as taking their own lives, because they just felt like like everything is a lie to them. Shit like this is very devastating to people that and we don't understand it for our own selfishness. And I have no problem if you are a part of the LGBTQ. I don't give a shit. To me, you are, like you said, I know you as Zonia, that's who you are. I know, you could come back and be like, well, my name's actually Brian. I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean?
What's up, Brian?
Yeah, what's good, Brian? Like, dab it up. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I don't give a fuck. I know you as a person. I'm not judging you because, well, Sonia's cool because, her hair and she looks like a woman. She's got to be cool. No, the person is who you are. It's a human. Or with, right? Exactly. You're more intrigued by the human on the inside than what's on the outside.
Right.
And it's sad that a lot of these people nowadays will do this to people and they like basically torture them their whole life.
Right.
When you really look at it, a lot of what's happening right now in our culture and in society has been by consent, right? Like indirectly. Now, to say that there is an agenda, there's been a narrative to make, because there's clearly a lot of confusion, right? Like right now, where the trend is that a lot of, especially younger people, are confused about their gender, right? That they want to become transgender, or that they're male and they want to be female, and vice versa. But now, maybe there was a lot of that before, but now because of social media and cameras and everything now is hyper focused because there's a camera or a mic or something on it. So, but the confusion might have always been there. Now it's just, we could always see it. But nonetheless, for sure, there is more of the confusion, more of the curiosity, because there is an overwhelming amount of stress in our culture, in our society. And not to mention that, social media, entertainment, music, all these platforms in our culture, they have a huge influence on especially the younger generation, right?
Absolutely.
And so in a way, it's all, and it's hard to speak, I guess, as a society as a whole, because it's vague, right? We can't say like, oh, people allowed this to happen. But in a way, like, we have the part, and this is my conspiratorial side, is that we have been conditioned to accept everything that's happening right now because of the music, because of the movies, because of everything that's been essentially imprinted on us. And now these younger generations, like, and I guess what I'm trying to get to is that it all falls back on even the educational system. People are not taught, we as human beings are not taught how to communicate, how to talk, how to accept and question and have these open conversations. And so because of that, now you're seeing the negative effects of that, to where you're having, teenagers, even kids at this point, and even that falls in some form of child abuse, where our laws are not even conducive to protecting, a 6-year-old who shouldn't, if he's a male, like biologically, then that kid needs to be a male up until a certain age. Like, I mean, the laws are so vague sometimes, and depending on the states, where they're not even, some people would consider that like the story that you just told, that's a form of child abuse.
Absolutely.
Right? Like forcing a kid to be a different gender that even themselves at some point are verbally saying like, no, I'm not a girl, like I'm a boy, or vice versa. But anyways, it just goes to show you where we are as a culture, where we are as a society. And right now we're living in a time where there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of stress, and it might be manufactured. Oh, that's what I was wanting to say. It's manufactured consent. Right? Norman Chomsky, this guy, and even people like George Orwell, like, people that back in the 70s and 80s were talking about this particular, this time and period that we're living in. You could see it because you saw how culture and how society and how people were shifting into, what we're having right now. And in a way it is the crazy part that that's all it comes down to. It's manufactured consent, because all these arguments and these conversations that we're having, like at the end of the day, it all comes down to, I think what the internet has done, it's made the world one community, but we forget that there's millions of communities. Right. And just the way like the city of El Paso is one community, right? Well, the city of El Paso broken down into there's tons of different communities in El Paso, right? So when you think of the world in that sense, like, and I think that's where we have, in terms of solutions to what's going on, I think that's where we have to start. We have to start to really see that, okay, like, you respect everybody's beliefs and everybody's way of thinking, and that's fine. But essentially, I think that it's about creating a community of people around you that are like-minded so that you can start building from there. Because then I think, the Beatles were classic for saying, love conquers all, right? Like, I think essentially we as human beings, we all have this notion of what's good and what's bad.
The moral
right?
compass.
Right. It's it's innate to us as human beings, right? Like, we know we shouldn't hurt somebody or kill somebody. Like, that's just, it's in our psyche to not do it. So I think it's a obviously very thin line, and it's vague, but nonetheless, I think what it comes down to is that I guess I just don't, because, and I'm trying to gather my thoughts on it, but I think we spend so much time and energy arguing on, well, is that right or is that wrong? And all putting our 2 cents in, that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, who fucking cares? Like, what we should really do is, all right, let's start rebuilding now, because we have the power. We, the people, have the power.
Absolutely.
We don't have to go to government and ask them if we can do this. We don't have to, and you're seeing it now, right? Like with there's the war that's been going on forever, right? Like and now it's even more now, where you see the overreach of government and other institutions like the corporate, right? Facebook and social media censoring and blocking certain information. So at the end of the day is we have the power, and the only way that we and this goes for anybody, if you are an LGBT or you do believe that your child should change his gender, fine, create a community and then build it and see how much support that's going to get. But what I'm saying is, overall, love conquers all, and good most likely was going to win. So if we can build communities that are with love and that are with good, that's going to overtake everything. So it's not a matter of trying to contest the argument or the current narrative about what's right or wrong, and it's more about fuck all that, like scratch that, like let's not even spend energy on it. Let's just rebuild. Let's create communities of like, look, this is what we all think is right, and we all want our kids to grow up in a healthy environment. We all want and I think that's what it comes down to too, right? Like, it's I chose not to have kids because I look at the world and where it's going, and it's scary. But this ain't scary. Times used to be scary way before. Like, that's just that I've been conditioned.
Different, scary. I mean, listening to both of you, the thing that keeps coming up is the word trust. Trust. I shared that really weird story about Carl Jung, but and you can substitute anything that you want to in there. It could be he was afraid to go against social media and his social group on Facebook. He was afraid to do that. He was so afraid he was breaking a sweat, but something about what they were doing didn't feel right to him, so he goes into this like deep dream state, and he decides he's going to connect to himself. He is really going to listen to what the force that is inside of him is telling him to do, no matter what anybody else around him is telling him, no matter what's been preached to him, whether it's from the school system, whether it's from society, whether it's from its social group, whether it's another psychologist telling him what he thinks he's supposed to be or she's supposed to be. No matter what that source is, take a big shit on it, like really that thing is not who you really are. It is not the ultimate source of power. And that is where I really appreciate who that individual was in the stream of time, because he was coming up in psychology during a time where God was dead. That was niche, you know, and he was like, actually, there's this powerful force that is moving me my entire life to go in this direction, and I can't not go. I have to go this way. And if you people need me to create some system that's not religion, for you to be able to find your way psychologically to a place where we should all know in our hearts through love and through understanding, then I'm going to give you this psychological path to your soul. Here you go. Follow this way. We're all containing all of these same things, everything that we're dealing with. There are other people that are dealing with it. Yes, find people who believe the same way that you are so that you're not alone. But then I would challenge people now fall in love with people who are not just like you.
Right. Yeah. That way you get to learn the difference. Let me ask you something on, because I know you had mentioned earlier about how people are starting to get offended for other people, which is creating this whole cancel culture. On the psychologist's view or the look of it, how dangerous is this cancel culture?
Just from a humanist standpoint, you know, I hear a lot of parallels being drawn right now to what's happening in our society and worldwide to the Holocaust culture. That's something people don't want to tap into. Is something that I've had conversations with people, you know, are you anti-vax? Are you pro-vax? I'm like, no and yes. Yeah, I can go all the way to autonomy of your body, and I can go all the way over here to how selfish human beings are and how lucky we are to have vaccines in our country, you know, when in Africa they're still dying from, you know, things that we've eradicated.
Right.
So you could go any direction. Ultimately, every person needs to find their own way there, right? And so how devastating is it? I think it can kill the human soul, and by that I don't just mean individually, I mean globally. You know, there's the term is called anima mundi. That is that the world is alive through all of us being connected to one another. And I think the forgetting that my well-being and your well-being and your well-being, all of our well-being in this room, it creates an intensified presence here. I think the forgetting that each person is part and particle of an intelligence that has all of the planets rotating in perfect synchronicity. I was talking to Robert about this. We are the only species in the entire cosmos that does not just follow, you know, some elliptical pattern that are not mathematically able to, you know, to see what is happening, but in the stream of time, all of these things are heading towards something, and we can try and block it, but this force is so much bigger than us, you know, and so we can try and cancel this person for feeling this way, and nope, that's not allowed, and that's not allowed, and that's not allowed, but actually it's all here right now. Why is it here? What can we learn from every aspect of it? If we just cancel things, if we just keep deleting people as friends, if we just keep blocking things that don't agree with us, then we're failing to evolve. Again, going back to that transgressive theory, it's like you may have to be really uncomfortable for a moment.
Yes.
But that's part of our growth.
Absolutely.
You know, right now at this period of time where a lot of things that people are longing for, they were attached to, they were addicted to it, they're not there right now to cling to. What is birthing in front of you? You know, I've had a lot of people say, well, what do we tell children at this time? You know, Robert's talking about this time is so difficult, and it is. I've had many times during this last couple of years where I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not a parent, and yet I have so many children that I love. And what do we tell them? We tell them there's a way.
Right.
Just that. You know, we didn't get to where we are how our parents got there. Our parents didn't get there based on how our grandparents got there. Nobody has ever fallen the exact same way. Just tell the kids there's a way, and they'll look for it.
Right.
You know, and that's where we're touching in on these educational parameters coming from all directions. And it's not just the educational system. You're talking about the government. You're talking about all these things. It still comes down to the individual finding the way. How do you find the way?
Right.
You know, how do you stop telling the little boy he's a little girl and let them blossom into that?
Right.
And just on that story, I was talking to a non-binary couple who had a little boy and were trying to call the little boy they and she, and he kept going, I'm a boy. No, I'm a boy. I'm a boy. And
Right.
so, you know, there are some things that cannot be taken out. And maybe it does take till the 20s. And then
Right.
that's going to be a whole other, you
Oh,
know,
yes. Oh, yes.
that's going to be a whole therapy
Yes.
session right there. But I think, again, trust. Like, how do we start to trust that intelligence? You know, I heard somebody say, you know, if you get the vaccine, you're separating yourself from your soul and from God. Really? No. No.
What about
your
that,
soul cannot be
the
separated.
varicella vaccine you got and the measles vaccine you got when you
You
were a
just
kid.
can't.
Yeah.
Have you looked under a microscope?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
it is complicated beyond all description under there. How did somebody see that pattern? How did they see that? You're gonna tell me that wasn't inspired somehow, that they were able to see that and break
Right.
that apart and then do what with it? I mean, you know, it's limiting ourselves to cancel any idea. Again, you know, like, is this good for us? Is this bad for us? It's really has to come down to, like, stop looking outward. Start
inward.
looking inward.
Yeah. You see, and one of the things that I really love that you said, that sometimes we have to put ourselves in uncomfortable positions, because that I truly believe that's the only way that you'll learn.
Adversity builds character.
Growth edge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Real shit, right?
Because so I know we had, so back in the few episodes back, we had Danny Villegas, who's big here in El Paso. He was charged with a double murder. He did 20 years. Turns out that everything that was used against him was all made up. He had nothing to do with it. This happened when he was 16. He got out. He finally got acquitted. But anytime, so prior to meeting him, you know, you here's this dude who's charged with double murder. So right off the bat, oh, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, you gotta, oh, he's this, he's that, because that's the way they build them, right?
Stereotypes are real for a reason.
Absolutely. And when I met the dude, I was like, dude, this is like the fuck. This dude's still like a kid. He's still like because this happened to him when he was 16. So think about it. He's been institutionalized or in the system at that age. He stopped growing at that age. You know what I mean? Like similar to like Michael Jackson. He stopped growing at 5 because he was in the spotlight and he was making adult decisions at fucking 5. And you can't do that to people. You are not allowing them to become themselves. And at the end of the day, you know, like I said, our stereotypes, right? Putting ourselves in that position. At the end of the day, coming away with the Daniel Villegas, after getting to actually sit down here and meeting him, talking to him face to face like this, to where he could, if he was a murderer, if I say something stupid, boom, I'm in arm's length that he could do something about it, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that you put yourselves in situations where you get to learn and be like, wait a minute, just because person A says something about person B doesn't necessarily make it correct. You know, because people have certain built-in, not prejudice, but misunderstandings about people. And it's easier to spread that hate that you have to somebody else than to actually experience it.
And I think a lot of people won't ever really be comfortable, like just touching on what you said in regards to, like, we have already these preconceived ideas and notions,
Right.
especially when it comes to stereotypes, right?
Yeah.
I'm not racist by any means,
Right.
but let's, for example, I know the stereotypes of African American people, just the way African American people know the stereotypes of Mexicans. Right. Like, I remember I was working construction in Dallas about 2 years ago, and I remember I was working with 4 guys, and one of them was my brother, and we were pulling this fiber optic cable, and it was funny because there was 3 guys, white Caucasian males. They were sitting on a truck, and they were the supervisors for that job site.
Right.
And here you have 4 Mexicans from El Paso pulling fiber optic cable,
Right.
and we're all like right behind each other. So we're pulling the cable, and these white guys are looking at us. And my brother, him being a less educated and pretty much a moron, makes his own racist comment, and he
Right.
says he as we're walking by these white guys, he tells them, he was like, he says, "We're not pulling hard enough, are we? I'm gonna go get us some more Mexicans."
Damn.
And everybody was like, all right, that was pretty racist. But he's the one that said it, like,
Right.
about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So then we carry on. On our way back, now one of the white guys tells us, he's like, hey, you guys aren't pulling hard enough. I'm going to go get more Mexicans for you.
Oh, fuck.
And now, so then I literally stopped pulling because at that point, I mean, I was in charge of the work that we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I stopped, and then everybody like stopped. And I told my brother in front of him, I said, let that be the last time that you ever make a racist remark in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you just allowed these guys to feel comfortable making racist remarks.
Right.
And you might think it's funny. You might think it's okay. But there's other men that are here that might not be okay with that.
Right.
So you're going to incite something that other people might not be okay. So
Right.
don't be an idiot.
Yeah.
And everybody and it was weird because that was a very just natural thing for me to do, where it was like I didn't feel like it was inappropriate, but I'm glad that it happened and nothing else came from it because it set the tone, letting them know like, hey, like, we're not cool with you doing that.
Yeah.
And telling my brother in this case, like, dude,
It's
like,
the same way.
yeah, man, like, don't do that.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is that, yes, like, some people would say, like, I'm not, like, I'll say it, right? Like, I'm not racist, but we all know the jokes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, like, it's being able to have conversations about it and realizing, like, that there's truthful things, or there's painful truths that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that one thing that I feel we fall victim to is that because it's happening in a very small part of the world. For example, like this argument of these microaggressions or the theys and zays and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That's happening in one corner of the world, but yet media and whoever covers it, you know, blows it out of proportion to make it seem like, oh, everybody's doing this, everybody's talking about this, everybody's having this conflict,
Right.
and because propaganda is real, right? I mean, that's why, you know, millions of people have died through the hands of dictators and through, you know, movements because of propaganda.
Right.
And if there's one thing that the human being is really, really good at, is not being good at being human beings when they're when they're as a whole,
The mob
right?
mentality.
And so, like, people need to remember and really think for themselves and realize that, because you hear about it on your scroll or you hear about it somewhere else, like, it's not happening everywhere. Right. And that's part of the conditioning. That's part of the propaganda, that they want to make you believe that it's happening everywhere, so that it does essentially become everywhere.
Right. So
But
it normalizes it.
Yeah.
Right. In your mind, you're
Yeah.
creating
Yeah.
that reality, that state of being immersed in a situation that isn't even in your direct environment.
Exactly. And you're doing it. That's manufactured consent. They're telling you that that's what's happening, and then you go and talk about it at dinner.
Yeah.
It's happening.
It's happening.
It's the truth.
It's like, no, dude, it's
Yeah.
fucking happening in one place. Like,
Right.
So people that's the thing, right? Like, and it goes back to take back your power. Like, you create your own, like, in other words, don't spread negativity. If you hear about things that are happening, like especially this in the time that we're living right now with this whole COVID nonsense, right? Pro-vax, vax, fuck all that. Who cares? There's so much other shit to talk about. There's so many other things that were happening way before this. Like, what? Now people are realizing that the government's out overreaching, that they're trying to impose motherfuckers. Like, this shit's been happening for a long time. Like, why are you guys making it seem like, oh, it's just happening?
brand new.
No, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be acting brand new. Like, it's been going on for a while. So the only way to beat that is like, okay, yeah, cool, whatever. But let's talk about whatever else, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's still so many things like beautiful things in life to talk about.
Or even just talk about your sovereignty. Talk about what that means to not mutually consent. What is that to not consent? But how do you do that? I was reading a book recently and for my course, and it's called Citizen. And in the book, she is narrating all of her experiences of racism and all of the ways that, you know, she's confronted with it on a daily basis. And I'm reading the book and I'm remembering, like, in my 30s when I got really, really angry about cultural appropriation and also about what it means to be Hispanic and to not know that you're Native American.
Right.
You know, and then all of a sudden you're in your 30s and you're like, what? I'm Native American? You know, and you're like, wait, why didn't I know that? You know, and then in the meantime, we've been colonized and been colonized to such an extent that we forget what it's like when you take the structure off of you and what it's like to just stand barefoot as a human being on the earth and to watch the sunrise,
Right.
you know, and watch the stars rotate and to be in contact with that. That's the empowerment, right? That's the beauty. How many times has nature saved a person's life?
Right. Well, that's called what, earthing, right? When
earthing.
when you have your foot to the ground and you're able to reconnect and get that positivity coming back from the ground, from the earth. Let me ask you, this is kind of a weird question because I know I'm probably not going to be the only one who has this thought process. But as a whole, I think a lot of people want to be good people, right?
It's innate to us.
I think that's in a whole, we really want to be that good person. However, with so much, and this is the thing that sucks, with so much data available to us on our phones, on our tablets or whatnot, instead of trying to learn how to grow as a better person or grow as, how can I do something to benefit my family that isn't just, I mean, monetary wise, great, right? If you have money, you're afforded a lot more luxuries. But at the end of the day, I think Bob Marley said it best. If you focus on money, you're never going to be, you're never going to get to the end because money has no end. It's an infinity. So you never get to the end and be the person that you want to be because you're too money driven. How can somebody, you know, coming with your psychological background, how can I focus more on being a better me and not focusing on, all right, there I am on social media and oh my God, this dude has this. Oh, fuck him. Because you know what I mean? Automatically, even though you're trying to be a better person, you don't want to hate. I don't want to hate people or be like, not, I guess hate is a strong word. I don't want to be
envious
of people because, you know,
but you're human, so
right. So it's gonna happen, right? But how can I focus more on the positive and be like, you know what, that's good for that cat. That worked out for him. That might not work out for me if I do that same route. You know what I mean? Because everybody has a different path, right? What could I do as a person to build myself to be a better human than a better or sprocket in the machine that we're going in through that we're talking about?
Right. Well, you said, there I am on social media. I'm all right there. That right there.
Tell me, you got to remember we are a podcast.
I do remember that. I do remember that. And I know that I'm always walking a fine line when I talk about that because it has provided us so many things. And right there is part of that judgment, right?
Right.
But I am learning, how to use social media as a platform to create.
Right.
And I think that to me is like the bottom line. If you're going to be on there, then get rid of comparison. That comparison is going to kill everything beautiful about yourself. And then the second step is create something. Like, be in a process yourself of creating something, and you won't be jealous, angry, pissed off at somebody else for creating whatever it is they're doing. You can balance that scale. You can be a product of your own mental space, of your own family. You're talking about like how do you bring healing to your own family beyond the monetary, which is of course infinite need, right? Practice contentment. Well, how do you practice contentment? Well, you gotta find things that aren't costing you money, right? It's like, when was the last time you and your family went for a walk or sat and got a block of clay and molded things with your hands, got a big sheet of paper, put it on your kitchen table and started painting and got lost in the spirit of creation. And by that I mean, like, you're just so in your own moment, in your own process. And that was a lot of what Jungian psychology taught. So you have Neumann, you have Jung, you have Hillman, and they're talking about healing fiction, right? The stories that we tell inside of our head, how we characterize somebody else, right? That asshole. How are you populating your daily life? Who are the characters that you're putting in it? What's the genre that you have on a daily basis? And how much responsibility for the tone of your day are you giving to yourself? This is all part of of that empowerment thing, that was just being talked about by Robert, by, what happens when you don't consent to what you're being told to do? Well, what happens if you don't give over all your mental or emotional space to what other people are telling you to do? You're going to get bored.
Right.
You're going to be sitting there and you're bored. And out of your boredom, you better find something to do. And hopefully, you find something constructive to do, so at the end of the day, you have these super cool paintings all around this room. You're looking at what you've done.
Right.
And that's the topic of your discussion for the day is, this is what I've done. This is what my life is about.
Yeah.
Now you have something that is positive, that's a force for good, that's healing, You
see, but that's kind of hard, because there's some people that have had a bad string of events for their whole life. So
yes,
if they have, automatically a lot of people are always me. I'm always the villain in a story, right? So somebody who has that mentality, who can't really see the positive in what they've done, what information can you give them to try to start looking, or to help them to start finding that?
See, but there's also a very thin line between being a victim, right? That's
the victim mentality.
It's a victim mentality. You victimize yourself. If you have a bad string of things happening to you, the acknowledgement of that itself is a victimization, because the truth is life, man. Life is fucking hard.
Yeah.
Like, life happens to everybody.
Right.
Like, everybody gets fired, everybody gets a divorce, everybody goes bankrupt. Well, not everybody.
Right.
A lot of
Everybody
people
has
do.
those trials and tribulations.
Yes. Like, and that's so let's say you had all those in a row, and then your dog gets sick, and then your kid gets sick. Like, so, oh my God, like life is bad, like shitty right now. How can I change it? No, dude, that's life.
Yeah.
So what you really have to learn is that, and this is my 2 cents, is you have to learn and accept that to live is to suffer. Suffering is a part of life, right? And that's Buddhism. That's Viktor Frankl, amazing psychologist, who developed this it's what's called logotherapy. He wrote this book called The Man's Search for Meaning. And he was a psychiatrist that got picked up by the Nazis and served as a doctor in 5 different concentration camps. And he got to see the Holocaust not only as a prisoner, as a Holocaust member himself, but also as a psychiatrist. So he writes this very compelling book that tells a story on how human nature, the first thing that the humans that died first were the people that lost hope. So that's one thing, is hope. Like, you as an individual, if you want to get better, know that if you're living right now and you're healthy and you have 2 legs and you're breathing, you have way more than hope. That you have hope that tomorrow is going to be a better day. That things that, the sun does come up after, and educating yourself, right? Like, and maybe I think there comes to a point, because I feel like I've reached that, where you can only gain so much information. You can only read so many books. You can only read or listen to so many podcasts, up to a point where, like, okay, don't listen, don't gain any more, but start applying, start implementing. Like, like in psychedelic trips, they tell you about, Alan Watts says, when you get the message, hang up the phone, right? So it's like, yeah, you can have all these, like in psychedelic trips, you can have these mind-blowing mystical experiences, but how many of those are you going to have before you start integrating what you've actually learned in the experience?
Or even on the other scope, even if you're having those psychedelic experiences, I have had people purposely keep going down the road of the trauma. Right. It's like, well, this is happening, and then I was shown this, and there it was again. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay, well, you keep going down that road out there. It is there.
Right.
I do trauma work with people who've been raped or who have been through child abuse and who've had, siblings murdered and things like that. And it's like, I don't downplay that. I'm not Pollyanna. It's like, yeah, life is fucked up sometimes, and I'm really sorry that happened to you. I always make sure that they know that that's where I'm coming from, but you're not you're not forever destined to always end up in that place.
Yeah.
You don't have to end up there. There is a whole other scope, but it's just that you keep looking down that way.
That
You
same
know, I
path.
had one client who was like, you know, wanted me to understand where they were coming from, and they were extremely aware of the greater things of life, but were showing me a tool video because there are a lot of really psychedelic images in there, and I was watching it, and at the end of it, I said, okay, but you know, if I'm having a psychedelic experience and there's some fucking disgusting toilets in there, like
Yeah.
the ones in there, I clean them. Like, I literally
some
do
Clorox
that.
out.
Yeah.
It's called active imagination. Like, that is something that I literally do.
Right.
Or I myself have had some traumas in my life, and they do come up, you know, in meditations or memories. And, you know, I'm sitting there and I'm like, yep, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had it where, oh, but what happens if I just went this way?
it's all
Not
choice
to
too,
deny
right?
it, you know, it's like, actually, I'm just curious, you know, what would well, why can't I be that is all me? Or, oh my God, if I stop the moment before my first childhood trauma, if I stop right there before I went into the garage of that asshole neighbor,
Right.
you know, like, wait, what happens there? Where am I? And that was actually what happened the last time I was in, you know, a course, and we were all, you know, forced to go back to these memories or whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, well, there it is. And it's not charged anymore. So I'm like, okay, well, here we are. But I was really happy when the image stuck of me on the sidewalk looking up at the sun. And
Nice.
I was like 3 years old. That was the story that day.
Yeah.
Was I'm a child of the sun. And what's amazing to me is that for my entire life, I can now, from having had that memory, stop right there and being like, whoa, I was in my 3-year-old body. I was in that communion state with the sun. You know, I was having this Jesus moment. I was having this, like, you know, fully immersed in my unbrokenness. I was whole in that moment. There were no stories attached to it. In fact, there's no story, just the sun and the light. And all of a sudden, all the times of my life where I've had those, you know, moments of just total relief. That's a really simple moment, but that's like the quieting of the story, right? I'm not even creating anything. I'm just now existing in this moment. In this moment, nothing's happening to me.
And a lot of that, it comes by choice, right? Like, you choose actively. And I know we got to wrap it up here.
No, go ahead.
Joe.
No, you're
but
good. You're good.
I think one thing also that I think it's important for people to hear, or to really kind of to indulge at least, right? Is there's a psychotherapist named Esther Perel, and she stated that the quality of your life is dictated by the quality of your relationships. And I think that if you embrace that statement, and you start to analyze the relationship that you have with the people around you,
Yeah.
you know, and obviously this goes, most people, I would say 9 out of 10 people, I would say, you experience some form of unhappiness or suffering, because that's life.
Right.
And I think anybody that listens to anything is because they're searching and they're seeking, right? And so, when I speak, I think I feel compelled to speak to the people that are searching for something, and because I know myself, I've been seeking and searching for a long time, and I've been fortunate enough to have life experiences that have taught me a great deal of things, and I've been very fortunate to have amazing people in my life that have taught me a great deal of things, and from that it's the quality of your relationships, right? So is getting rid of not people, but of things that don't serve your life, that don't serve your purpose. Find out what your purpose is. And how do you do that? Is sit on a cushion, sit out in a park, just sit and just don't do nothing. Don't be on your phone. Don't look for answers. Don't do anything. Just sit and it'll come to you. We as human beings have this beautiful and extremely luxurious gift of the universe, that there is a God force, and not Jesus Christ, not Buddha, whatever God is to you, but that speaks to you. And if you just shut the fuck up enough,
Right.
it'll speak. You'll hear it, and that's all you have to do. And the the easiest way to find contentment and to find peace is literally these things are free. You don't have to go to a yoga class. You don't have to meditate.
Right.
I mean, those are all great things, but the most effective and the most beneficial things to do for yourself are the simplest and the cheapest and the easiest.
Yeah.
And one thing to definitely examine is to examine the relationship that you have with yourself. I think that I've personally learned that it's very, very hard and it's very difficult to be honest with people that you love about how you feel and how you think.
Right.
But it's very, very hard to be honest with yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is that if you're lying to yourself, you're in a world of hurt because you can lie to other people. You can lie to your friends. You can lie to your coworkers. That's easy.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done it all the time. But if you're lying to yourself, I mean, you're really fucking up because then at that point, I mean, there's nobody else to lie to. So I think it's important for you to sit down and analyze, who you are, where you are, what are your priorities in life. And I think we're coming into a point in time where the rat race, the monetary system, the ego, all that is being highly questioned and it's being highly contested. And the thing, there couldn't be a more perfect or more beautiful time to be alive because of the overwhelming amount of resources, of information, of people, of life that is around us that we have access to. And so, 22 people a day on average, veterans commit suicide from PTSD every day, right? And it's sad to say, but there's a lot of people that are suffering from depression, from anxiety, from suicidal ideations and tendencies. And I've worked in a behavioral health hospital where on a regular basis I encounter people that are experiencing psychosis induced from stress, psychosis induced from drug abuse, people that are there regulars for a suicide attempt. And life is hard, man. Like life is like, it is hard. Like things are hard. And you were raped by a dad, uncle, brother. That's tough and it's unfortunate. But the thing is that there right now, that anybody who is in despair, anybody that is depressed and anxious, aside from having hope for your life, there is an overwhelming amount of people that are going through exactly what you're going through.
Right.
And an overwhelming amount of people that possess the ability to help you heal, to help you find purpose, to help you find that joy in life. And like I said, I've been fortunate enough to be in those realms where I've come across beautiful people that in one way or another indirectly have brought value and purpose to life itself. And the thing is that it's all of us and it's all around you. Right.
Yeah. So, like you said, a lot of it is free. But I agree with everything you say. The only thing I have, not contradictory, but it's just so hard nowadays for people in general to get away from that fucking phone.
It's an addiction.
It's an addiction. Yeah, because the dopamines and all that.
Dopamine hit.
The fucking rushes that you get, and it's such a I've always said people are their own worst enemies. Yeah, it's the absolute truth. Because with the kids, the moment I'm trying to do something, and the kids, hey dad, I was like, you know what? Here's a fucking phone. Go to YouTube. Go, leave me the fuck alone. You know what I mean? And it's because you're so overwhelmed with so much other shit. That's really not that meaningful when you sit down and think about it. Because what's more meaningful is, like I'll think back to my childhood is, luckily I didn't have any of that shit, right?
Yeah.
My form of entertainment is when I get home, I put my shoes on, I'm playing ball, I'm doing some shit till the sun comes down, and I come back, or I'm helping my dad in the garage doing whatever, or my mom, and we're sitting and spending quality time as opposed to here's the fucking TV, here's the fucking iPhone, here's the iPad. Just go away, just go be somewhere because mom has to talk to so and so to get off her cheeseburger off her fucking chest, or you know what I mean? Whatever it is, it is just so. I feel like we're with so much information available to us, we're using it all incorrectly, and it sucks that we're quick to put a judgment on people. And like you said, we can't sit back and look at ourselves and be like, wait a minute, I'm fucking this up for this person that I'm in charge of bringing up correctly in this world.
Yeah,
right?
and that's what it comes down to, man. It's accountability.
Right.
Like, for example, I went out and bought a high drive dog. I knew before that dog came home that my life was going to change. I knew that I was going to have to spend anywhere from 3 to 5 hours every single day training that dog, or else that dog would become destructive. He would become a nuisance, and I would not want him around. Right. Which at that point would completely deplete my investment, my time invested, my emotional attachment, and all the things that come with that. Right. It's not to compare a dog to a child, but the thing is that if you're a parent in that context and that you just explained, if you're a parent, whether you chose to or not, you're a fucking parent. So then act like a parent. Be accountable for your choices and your decisions and your lifestyle. Absolutely. If you don't want to do it, then fine. But then don't complain or don't try to find a better way. But the thing is that a lot of people are really quick to give up accountability, man. You know, if you're unhappy or if you're unsatisfied with your life, you're choosing it. Nobody's forcing you. Nobody's, you know, holding a gun to your head saying you have to do this job. You have to be this parent. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. Find somebody else for it. And it might sound drastic and it might sound very inconsiderate or insensitive. But at this point, man, like there's no real reason for anybody to not be accountable for their shit, you know? And again, I don't mean to come off like a heartless asshole, but yes, there's people that are suffering from mental disorders and conditions, and it is hard. But there's a very few amount that it's to a point where they need professional help, where they need somebody to intervene so that they don't take their life. Right. All the other people, I mean, and I'm only talking from my personal experience, but a lot of people are going through this because they're not getting the attention that they want from somebody that they think that they want it from, or that they want it from it. And so what it comes down to is, again, analyzing yourself, analyzing your life, analyzing your relationship with yourself, with others around you, eliminating what doesn't work, and really taking accountability for what you're doing on a daily basis. What do you do when you wake up? What do you eat? Right. What do you like, you know, and all these little things matter. And another thing that can, if you want to talk about technical, like start writing, right? You feel like shit after you ate McDonald's breakfast, write it down, see the pattern on why you feel like shit, write down everything you eat and write down everything you do. After 2 weeks, read what you're doing, what you're eating, and you can figure out why you're feeling like shit. Yeah, self-evaluation. And that's accountability. Right. Like that's basically what it comes down to. So there's no reason why you can't be accountable. You see, and that's where we come back to what we were talking about earlier about the uncomfortableness. The whole reason that I think people keep on going through that same wheel is they have that false sense of comfort. Because they're like, all right, if I'm doing this job, I'll be able to do this, and we're comfortable here. I don't want to fuck what we have here, this under what I already know what we have. Because if I fuck this up, then what? I'm either, you consider yourself a failure, or you might let somebody down, or you're too worried about the fake judgment of people that, regardless, people are going to say whatever the fuck they want to say, whether you approve of it or not. You know what I mean? And at that point, something that Vince and I have always said, I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about me, right? The only people that I think that I have any investment in are the ones that I consider close in my circle. If, say, for example, like Rob, we're cool, but if you saw him fucking up, it's like, hey, whatever, Rob's Rob. Yeah. But if my kid comes up to me and says, hey, Dad, you fucking up, I was like, yo, whoa, what do you mean? Wait, what? What the fuck? I was like, hold on, well, first of all, I'm going to whoop your ass. But first, second of all, the fuck do you mean? Like, what? You know what I mean? At that point, you got to sit down. And it takes that, and I think it's.
But why wait till then? I think, you know, earlier, it's kind of this Pollyanna thing. When's the last time you did these things with your kids or whatever? But I think the question was, what do you do when you're feeling meaningless in your family? If you're feeling it, my sense is like, if you're feeling it, you're not the only one. But everyone's anesthetizing their emotions. Everyone's quieting down their thoughts with all of these devices. You know, if we just check out, then we don't have to address what's actually happening here. But what happens when you take away all the devices and you put them all away, and then you're all sitting in a room together and you don't know what to say? That's the problem right there. The meaninglessness is that you want to love each other more. That is beautiful. That's not a problem. You know, and it's like you're afraid to like share the things that are making you feel down. Why? That's human. You know, you want to like learn how to be good storytellers again. You know, how do you describe your life to people without the camera, you know, without the video, without reference? referencing something else. Can you access your storytelling ability? Because that's what we used to do as
Right.
tribal people. You know, we used to sit in front of fires and we used to tell stories. And what were the stories that we told? Well, you had to be engaged with life or you would have nothing to share.
Right.
And there was nothing to distract you. Talk about being simple, right?
Right.
It's like now the need to make all the money to make the family happy, to avoid this meaningless life. Wait a second, we go backwards. We don't need all of this stuff. Our life is very simple.
Right.
Now we actually have tons of time together and we're in love.
Yeah.
And that's really what everyone is seeking. You know, when I have these clients come and they want to talk to me about things, it's like, what is it that you need? Well, I really want to feel loved and accepted. Well, I love you. I accept you.
Right.
You do? You mean nothing's wrong with me? This story isn't so weird or my suffering isn't so strange that you can't accept who I am or what I'm doing? No, it's human.
Right.
You know, or I'll have somebody crying, you know, and it's like, am I just an emotional person? You're a human being. Yes, thank you. Show your emotions.
Right.
But that is what all of these technological devices do, is they actually numb our prefrontal cortex,
they
you know, so
suppress
that
it.
we don't have to feel anything, we don't have to think anything. But if we give that up, we're talking about governments and all of these other things suppressing us or taking our soul away. We're not in contact with our own soul at that point. And
Right.
that is when we need to slow way down and take a whole lot of things out of the picture
Yeah.
and just be together.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this idea of, you know, meditating, go sit. Well, you can do the same thing with your family. 4 floor cushions. Here we are. Everyone's going to sit here. We got half an hour. We might make each other totally nuts. But if you're having problems or if there's something that concerns you,
Right.
you know, I mean, this is what the talking stick used to be about.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
where everyone had a chance to voice themselves. And one of the most healing things you can do when you're talking to somebody who's suffering is just listen.
Yeah.
And that includes yourself. You're suffering, you're having a hard time, listen to you. But don't fall into the thought pattern so much that you can't observe and hear yourself. You know, as long as you have that slight distance, you don't have to fear your emotions.
Right.
You know, your emotions are there to guide you and to get you on track.
Yeah.
Like that is actually the most informing thing and the most healing thing you can do for yourself is actually like, lo siento, I'm sorry you're having a bad day today, but tomorrow's going to be better.
Right. You see, and that's something so I've heard, so you know how we were talking about all the different podcasts, all the different things that you hear. And a lot of the times it's good to hear something different than the usual, you know, bullshit, which is something that I like about this podcast is that we never come in with an agenda. Whatever happens, happens. Like, I mean, well, you guys can see, we never, Rob, you've been here, 3 or 4 times, and we've never been like, all right, we're going to talk about this. No, whatever happens,
we
happens.
do.
Because we try to keep it as real as we can and, you know, talk about what things that people don't want to talk about but only talk about behind closed doors. And I think that's really important to be able to have that conversation. And one of the things I had learned, I actually got from a comedian, Kevin Hart, that he said he does with his kids, he does free talk. And this is something that I've done with my kids. And what free talk is that if you have something to say, right, but you don't want to be judged or you're scared to tell because you're afraid that I'm going to get mad. I've told my kids when we're sitting down, you know, we're having dinner, you know, one of the things right off the bat, no phones and nothing. When it's dinner time, it's us. Put the phones away. I don't give a shit. Even for me, my phone's been blowing up or whatever. I don't give a shit. It's our time. And with the free talk is that you could go ahead and say anything you want without any judgment, and we'll come back and solve it as people, not as a parenting unit, right? And you could come on, and my daughter, you know, bless her heart, she'll say, you know, free talk, and she'll be like, you know what, this crazy motherfucker is like, oh, well, you're 8. But I was like, you know what? Cool. Do what you got to do. But it's amazing. It's amazing that they feel comfortable. You know what I mean? When you give them that platform. And what I'm hoping to achieve with that is later on, if something happens, that they feel comfortable, be like, you know what, Dad, this dude, he was trying to be handsy with me, or, you know, whatever it is, or so-and-so was, you know, touching me, how inappropriate, whatever it is. I want these kids to be able to have that safeguard, to feel safe around me, to tell me something without me automatically getting down their throat or yelling at them or making them feel like it's their fault or anything. I want to be able to have that safe cushion with them. And that's something that I think is very important as a person, but as a parent, it's fucking hard. Right. You know, it's hard to accept the fault, that hard truth. And something that we always say when we finish a show is don't be an asshole and don't be a dick. And evidently, that hasn't happened because of all the crazy shit that happens. What can we do to achieve that? You know what I mean? How can we achieve that within ourselves to not be a dick and not be an asshole?
I don't know. I still call myself an asshole sometimes. I mean, I'm watching myself, and that to me, I don't want that to be disheartening, but it's like you do gotta have like a sense of humor at some point. It's just like, God damn it, I've got like all the best intentions. I have all the tools. I spend so much time, monitoring my thoughts and taking in good ideas and trying to be a loving person. But man, I'm hearing myself inside my internal dialogue sometimes while I've got this thing going on out here, and this is true for me, but that's true for me too. I think the asshole is just part of our psyche, and it's like learning how not to let it override, or learning when it's appropriate to allow that asshole to step in for us in our behalf. So I don't know, eradicating it, maybe not possible, but at least coming to terms with it.
Yeah, it's a thin line, because sometimes the asshole has to put everything back and check it into perspective.
Absolutely.
But when you're being an asshole to be an ass, just to be an asshole
if
on
you
purpose,
don't know you're being an asshole, that's when it's
That's the problem.
Yeah, that's the worst one, right?
No, for sure.
Well, you don't know you're the asshole.
In poker, they say when you're sitting at a table, if you can't discover who the sucker is in 30 minutes of playing, then
You're the sucker.
Yeah. There's this philosopher by the name of Robert Anton Wilson who talks about the way that human consciousness and human intelligence increases. And the way it is that you have person A, let's use for example, like meditation. Person A is the person that the consciousness, the awareness that wants to meditate because they've heard, read, seen the benefits of meditation, right? Person A becomes person B in the meditation. So the person meditates, they do their 20 minutes of just silence, and whatever comes, whatever doesn't come, whatever happens. Person C is now, or awareness C, this is all the same person, but awareness C is the awareness, the consciousness that thinks about what happened during the meditation, the self-analyzation, the self-talk, the letting go, the just feeling free, that can then analyze the person before the meditation, consciousness, awareness A. And the way that intelligence increases itself is by essentially studying and analyzing your own intelligence, right? So it all comes down to awareness. Be mindful,
and then unfolding it.
And it's tenfold, and that's intelligence squared, and that's all happened all within the same awareness being. And so I think that it's important for everybody to realize that we all have these practices of mindfulness and meditation or anything like that's you'll never stop the mind. You'll never stop this neurotic monkey mind that we have. You'll never stop being an asshole. We're always assholes. Adversity builds character, and failure is a part of life. Like it's going to happen. A friend of mine that I have a lot of respect and admiration just today texted me, and we had a little disagreement, and he tells me, cause he was upset, and he said, I should have listened to, what our peers said about you, that you're a failure to thrive, or you're a failure to launch in life. And to me, I laughed, right? And he told me some other things, and I found it really comical. I've been really good at not getting emotionally aroused with my ego. And for me, I found it really funny because I'm like, man, that's so funny. Like, to think that I've been a failure to launch. Like, man, what does that make everybody else? Because I think, I've lived quite a bit, and I've had tons of failures, but I don't consider myself a failure, right? And so in this notion and this idea of not being too concerned about what people think or what people say, because that's all ego. People should really learn about what the ego is and how it works and how it takes over your mind, your heart, because it can be something that can be self-destructive, right? And so I'm very fortunate, and I'm very happy that I could even come out and say something like that and not be affected at all, because I know who I am. I know what I possess. I know what I can offer to the people around me, and everybody has that potentiality. It has that capability of knowing who you are. And if you don't, figure it out, like find out. And all you have to do is literally just sit with yourself and listen to yourself, listen to your heart. It'll come out.
Be honest, like
and be
you
honest,
said, right? I mean, that's the main thing. It's like, no, I do have an inner asshole.
For sure.
She is there. Oh, right now she's being an asshole. Don't act on it. Don't act on it.
It's like I tell the kids when when I was telling you about earlier, I coach or help coach a team. I tell the kids, you know what? There's no such thing as failure. There's just another opportunity to learn from something that didn't go the way you wanted it to go. So if you look at it that way, I think it's a lot easier to be like, look at kind of like, the half of the cup, half empty as opposed to half full, right? Because if you go with the mindset that I'm failing, and you have certain, like the snowball effect, right? So all of a sudden you go from I messed something up by accident to now I'm a complete fucking failure.
Yeah.
And if you have that mindset already, no matter what you do, how beautiful in anything that you do in life, you're still considering yourself a failure because of that one fuck up that you had that just snowballed. So I keep on telling people, there's no such thing as a failure. It's just an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's hard. It's hard to take that into for yourself sometimes too, because right off the bat you expect, society tells you at 30 I should be here, at 35 I should be here, at 40 I should be here. But no, I mean,
but what do you tell yourself?
Yeah, it's all about
says.
Exactly. It's all about what's meant for you and your deck. You know what I mean?
I always like that phrasing too, where it's like, if you haven't failed, you're not trying enough.
Right.
It's like Robert said, I have a whole hell of a lot of experience. My dad told me one time, he's like, I look at your life, you don't have a lot to show for it, quote unquote. He's like, but man, if I could open you up, there's so many treasures in there, and that's coming from a man who, worked at Chevron from 18 until he retired. Like he did all the things society told him to do.
Right.
And he appreciates that I have had a hell of a lot more life experience than he was able to because he was in an office.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
So before we go, like I said, I love having you guys. I love having you on. Zonia, it was a pleasure to meet. Rob, you know how we are, man. Any last words closing for the people to go ahead and finish this off on a positive vibe?
I'll lead it.
Yeah, I know you.
The other day I was sitting, and one word, one concept, one idea that came to surface and that I really it really touched me was resiliency. I think we're in a time right now where we have to be very resilient. And luckily our ancestors and who we are as human beings, we're very naturally resilient. And I think we're at a time where everybody has to find that and has to explore it and implore it for the sake of self and for the sake of everybody around you. And resiliency is something that it can't be taught. It can be, you don't read it anywhere. We all have it, and and it's in us. And so, if anybody takes anything from this, is be resilient, learn it, love it. Amor fati, which is love your fate.
There you go. That's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Zonia?
How do I follow up amor fati? Oh my goodness.
The pressure's on.
It is. But I think, throughout the show, there was just various moments in time where I was thinking about, vision quest and the cry for vision and trust and in these moments that are so uncertain and when we don't know, I just really encourage people to find that trust and to take the time to cry for a vision and actually listen for it and wait for it and then find their way, find their way to God, whatever that is for you. To that son, to that child of the sun. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I know we were talking about social media and all that. Do you have any social media where people could want to learn more about you, hear more about you, your thoughts that you have, or?
I have only a website. I do not have Facebook. I have an inactive Instagram that has 0 pictures because I was always like, well, where does the story start? I don't know.
So what's the website that people could learn?
The website is my first and last name. First name Zonia, last name Lucero, Sonia Lucero at .com.
Okay. So, and then there we can find a lot of your teachings and thinkings.
And you guys see what I do and what's the basis for the healing work that I do, the kinds of healing work that I do, different blog posts. I think I might have some art on there. Yeah.
Yeah, but one thing that I have learned and that I feel very fortunate with Sonia is that she's just the type of energy and soul that if you come across, you're blessed to, but most likely you're not, it's hard to come across.
Oh yeah.
But and we didn't get to it. Maybe next time that you're in town, we'll sit down and kind of go over the, your travels and things of that nature. But for sure, it's one of those things that I personally feel very, very fortunate, very blessed to be able to spend time with you. And because I know that the people that do get to, spend time with you, there's a lot of healing that happens. So
thank you.
Yeah,
It's really nice to just feel in the heart here, just any people you can sit with and be that open with and let it flow. That something good's happening, and like I said, we're showing people how it's done, right?
Yeah, no. The moment you walked in, you could feel the vibes. I don't know if it's coming from you or Rob, since I don't know, like I said, since we go back,
it's all of us.
It's all conjured up together. Right. Rob, you're still at the Higher Frequency on Instagram?
Still there. I haven't done any podcasts, but because I've been busy being rancher and doing all kinds
trying to live,
basically living, man, staying off the. But I'm actually getting I'm building a little studio to get back into podcasting.
Word.
I'll put out more when I got that. But for now, just I'll still keep the Higher Frequency at a Higher Frequency. They're on Instagram and Facebook. But for now, just creating life before I can create content.
There you go. That's the way to do it. Guys, I really appreciate you guys taking the time out your busy days to come through.
Thank you, man.
Shine a little light for them people, because this is the only way, like you said, to have these sit down and have these conversations. This is the best way to get through in life, through ups and downs, whatever. Find what other people are going through. Maybe their story matches your story, and that could help you become a better person, a better you. If not, you have somebody that are blessed like these two individuals that make you want to inspire to be a better person and a better thought-provoking human being as it is. So until next time, guys, don't be an asshole. Don't be a dick. Follow us at The Words on Fire podcast at the IG, thewordsonfire.com. Deuces.
Later.